Yeah, so I actually stumbled across one of your reels. It was on breathwork and meditation.
Mm.
And one thing that came across to me was your authenticity. I'm like, wow, like you seem so authentic. And I've always been interested in breath work because we started doing cold plunging.
Hmm.
And the first couple times you do that and you don't have breath work, it's very difficult.
Yeah, totally. Breath is everything.
And then with meditation, I read somewhere that it's one of the only ways that you can decrease your brain age.
Yeah.
And so that was really interesting to me. So maybe just tell us a little bit of how you got into that. And
Yeah. So kind of two different stories. So I will start with breath work. Um, my husband and I had done breath work a couple of times at like conventions and whatnot, and we were at one in LA years ago. And there was this teacher, John Paul Cremini, and we got to the class late, and so I was laying one place, my husband was laying in another place, and at the end of the class, I'm like very in touch with my emotions, so I cry during breath work. That's like nothing shocking, right? But the end of the breath work class, I got up and I see my husband laying on the mat behind me, and he's wiping tears from his face. And my husband is a very masculine man who is not, he's done a lot of work to become in touch with his feelings, if you will. And so when I saw that, I was like, holy shit, this is so powerful. And so during COVID, actually, I was supposed to go to a live training, John Paul Cremini, to get certified for breathwork, and I ended up doing it online. But that's really when I became a breathwork instructor. And, breathwork means a lot of different things, but utilize it with my children. And it's, the breath is just so powerful. And yeah, to your point, we do cold plunging too. And, you're not going to make it 3 minutes in the ice unless you can breathe.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then meditation was kind of a different thing. I've been meditating for a long time, since my middle son was a baby. And I remember my husband got into it first, and he was like, I was overwhelmed with, a newborn and a toddler. And he was like, go meditate. I'm like, I don't have time to meditate. He's like, you can find 5 minutes. And so I started doing meditation years and years ago, and that has evolved. I've gotten really deep into Joe Dispenza meditation in the last couple of years, which is a whole nother story. But yeah, there's just so much power in our human body when we, tap into it. And
How did you get started? Like, I mean, I've tried meditation, and for me, like, and a lot of other people that I talk to, would you say that you go with your thoughts? Do you try to control your thoughts? I mean, that's the biggest thing starting out, is obviously distractions and things like that. And I get off track. And so how do you start?
it's a great question. I started using apps. So I first started using Headspace years and years ago, and then I used Calm, and then I've used Insight Timer. And the last couple of years, I've really only done Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. But I think that the biggest thing people need to know going into meditation is that, you're going to have thoughts. The practice isn't to shut down your thoughts. I mean, there are times where I get really deep into meditation now, but that's been, like a decade almost of practice where thoughts go away. But really the practice is allowing your thoughts to come. And if you think of them like logs on the stream, you're able to witness them going past without jumping onto the log, right? And when you're new, you're going to jump on a lot of logs, and you're going to just have to remind yourself to get back off and to start witnessing it again, And so it's a practice. And I think that so many times, people, myself, we want to start something and we want to be really good at it right away. And that's why it's called a meditation practice. Like, I don't know that any of us are really good at it. And yet it's still so powerful, even if you're doing it not that well.
Yeah, for me, that's the problem, is you want to be good at it, and you want it to be a positive experience. And I'm having a hard time continuing to do it because I get frustrated with it. And I've tried some of the Peloton stuff, the meditation stuff, and it's good. It's relaxing. Mike and I did a meditation at a park one time with our wives. And remember that, Mike? That was interesting.
Yeah, it was. And we got disrupted by some strangers walking through. So maybe that wasn't the best spot for it. But we're trying. And yeah, so and to Kevin's point, too, I think I want to get to this place and with a meditation that maybe isn't realistic. I don't know. But yeah, I always think about shutting off my thoughts. And it's good to hear you say that may not be part of what I should be after.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
Interestingly too, is I've had some like amazing breakthroughs, which I call downloads during meditation. And so those to me are like intuition and the universe, like literally speaking to me in there. But, if you're trying to shut off everything, you're working too hard and you're kind of working against yourself, because then you're actually not even open to receiving, which is, we have all this beautiful intuition if we allow it to come through.
So when you say downloads, do you mean like something that is speaking to you that you didn't expect to come, or something that maybe just talk a little? That's interesting to me.
Yeah,
I've never heard it talked as downloads.
As downloads. So I've had them in all sorts of forms, right? Like, this might sound weird, but I'm actually okay with sounding weird. So it is what it is.
That's awesome.
So I've been to multiple Joe Dispenza retreats, right? And you are meditating for long periods of time. And those are like downloads that I honestly feel I resonate with God's, whatever you call a higher being,
Yep.
but where I feel that God is talking to me. And it's like, it because it's not coming like in the way you would talk to yourself. It's like, my child or dear one, before you get this message, right? And like you get this message that you just feel so deeply is not yours, right?
Yep.
So I think I've had massive things like that. And that's easier to do when you're at a Joe Dispenza retreat. I'll tell you that. It's harder to get at home. But, even this, starting a company for the first time. And even that I feel like came through meditation and like it to the point where like even like my slogan came through and I'm like, that was not my thought. That was coming from something else that's bigger than me.
Yep. I 100% agree. I've been getting into writing music and there's a similar vibe that comes in that you don't know where it comes from. And you start to hear things that you can't really understand. It wasn't in your thoughts before that, but it just comes to you and you put it down on paper, you put it down on the instrument. And, and even Mike and I, when we started with a pull-up challenge. That was, we decided that we didn't want to just, let our bodies and our minds go as we aged. And so we had to do something different. And this company came out of that as well. We couldn't really explain how it happened. So I totally understand what you're talking about.
Totally. And actually to that point, I think that so many times we should on ourselves, right? And like you guys think, maybe not just you guys, but people think they should have a meditation practice. And while I really believe in meditation, and it's been so profound for me, I also think there's other ways to get into those flow states, right? And exercise is one of them. I don't know how to surf, but when you watch people surf, music, dance, and so I think that if it's another means in meditation that allows you to receive those downloads and to get into those flow states, like that's just as amazing.
Yeah. And I think it has a lot to do with what you like.
Yeah.
I think you find that those downloads in things that you enjoy and things that you want to do. And sometimes I think too, you do have to practice a lot of things, but if you follow your talents, you're going to have a better opportunity to have that situation.
100%. I think it's like learning to live within alignment with yourself, right? Which is a journey.
But that's difficult for people because I think, to your comment earlier, I don't want to sound weird, right? But I think, right. But some people, like, they don't go forward with things that is being shown to them because they're in fear of what is this person going to think, or how am I going to come across, or I might not be good at this.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and then you shut yourself off to all these things that you could be doing.
And I think Kevin and I this past year, this has been one of our points of like everything we're doing. It just kind of happens and flows, and we don't know why. It almost feels like we've talked about like something's happening in the world that's taking us in a direction, and we're here. And if you would have said last year that I'd be on a making reels or podcasts with somebody, I would have thought you're crazy. And the pull-ups turned into something else. And then it caught the attention of, this Google executive person we kind of knew, and she creates websites, and just things started snowballing, and we're like, okay, well, let's just roll with it.
Right.
And it's been really, we're just getting started, and we don't even know where we're going to end up, and we don't care. And we don't, we're almost 50, or I am. And it's like, I'm at a point where I'm not caring so much. I regret caring so much about what other people may have thought about me back then, because it could have blocked some of the great journeys that I could have went on.
Yeah.
Things are great, but we're on a journey here, Kevin and I, of definitely like struggles and greatness and whatever it's going to be. And that's why this really, I mean, these topics, your story, it matters. We love you. You mentioned, I think in something I saw in your profile or wherever, the word seeking. Like we're really becoming, I think, more in touch with all our conversations, like in learning and seeking and trying to get better is like one of our overriding themes.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that all resonates for sure. I think, it's just living an intentional life. And, to your point, Kevin, about fear, I think that's something that we all have to overcome, and I think that many of us, I know myself included, grew up, thinking that I had to be a certain way to be lovable and that, to be liked was important. And then, you go along this journey and it's definitely a journey, right? And you,
sure.
You get to a point where you're like, really at the end of my life, like the only person who can change it really is myself. And the only person, it only matters what I think of my own life at the end of the day, right? And so you realize like you just have to kind of go for it. And overcoming fear is, I think probably the biggest work that we all have.
Is there a time in your life where you can pinpoint like this is when this started for me, or have you always lived intentionally?
No, I have not always lived intentionally. I've always been super curious and I've always been a seeker for sure. I think that, moving away from home, like, probably for many of us, you realize like, oh, wow, all the stories that I, believed are stories. Right. And so that's been a long process. I definitely had a mentor who was like a life coach, if you will, who challenged me a lot of things and showed me that the things that I believed were stories that I was, that I've just went along with, that likely are passed down from my parents, right? And so I think living intentionally has been something that has just, grown with time as I have grown.
It is interesting because those are stories, and they're stories that are passed down from family members and people around family members, and you're born and this is your mom and this is your dad and this is your God and this is where you go to school, and you have all these different things, and then that's kind of how people function and for me it was one day, I don't know what day it was, but I woke up and I started to not question my mom and dad and things like that, but you start to question like, am I living my life like pure to me and the things that I want to do? And then I went into a discovery period. And that's tough because there's a lot to unpack, right? You got to go in and figure out why you do certain behaviors and why you have certain relationships and why some are good and why some could be better.
And Kevin, honestly, like we've had this conversation. So it's again, like to hear other people talking about we're creating our own world, and it is why do we have to live in this box that was created for us? Right. And I feel like, again, recently we started stepping out of that. I mean, long way to go, but we've had these conversations. It's unbelievable to me that we're talking about it.
It's beautiful when you realize that you're creating your own world and that you're not just some victim. I think I had victim mentality for a long time, and you realize like, wow, that's really not serving me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does no good.
No.
And like people have hard lives. Like I did a lot of things. Like I was very fortunate. I did not have a hard life, but some people do. Yeah. And the reality is, even through that, you have the responsibility moving forward. Like because you can't really change what happened, and it's that's difficult.
Yeah, and I think we all deal with challenging things, right? Like being a human can be really hard. Like I feel a lot of things, and some of them are really, really hard, and it's like you have a choice in those moments where you can, really sit in it and face it and figure out, how you can learn from it and grow, or you can sit and feel sorry for yourself, right? And people get stuck there for long periods of time, but that doesn't change the circumstances.
When I felt sorry for myself, when I had a colicky baby.
Yeah.
Which you know, I know you've so the moment at when some things might have changed in your life, I'm curious about is through that experience potentially, that it sounds like you may have had some, well, I'm commending like the fact that you went out and took it on yourself to learn about why it sounds like your son was having the struggles he was. Really, I'd like to hear more about, because I remember those days and I don't remember them fondly.
It is so much, right? You have a child.
It's so much.
Holy shit, they rock your world. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I think I thought that I was healthy prior to that, right? I grew up very much like on the standard American diet, and but I was always seeking more information and how I could feel better and how I could live better. But still, when I look back, I really wasn't like living, you know, optimally. But I've been on a journey for a long time. But you know, yeah, when my son was struggling, you know, my mama bear intuition took over, and it was like I was not accepting the answers that the doctors were giving me, like they just weren't good enough, right? And so, you know, antibiotics, endless rounds of antibiotics and tubes in your ears, and that's what was recommended. And I'm like, no, I'm not having any of this. And so that's really, yeah, that's why I went back to school for nutrition, and I found so many things set me on my path, and I'm grateful for his struggles, because, you know, it was a pivot for me. And yeah, I guess, you know, my curiosity and, you know, just being a mom, that's a strong driving force to protect your littles, right?
Yeah, it's tough when little ones are going through stuff. So you have 3 boys?
And 3 boys.
Okay,
Crazy.
so I have 2 boys. Mike has 2 boys. So
Okay.
all boys.
Yeah.
And how old?
11, 9, and 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my boys are a little older, 17 and 15. So we're on the other end of that. So
Oh gosh, I'm curious what those teenage years will bring.
You know, Mike has a college student, so I'll let him speak about the college experience. But the teenage years are great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you know,
It is.
You form a relationship that's different. You know, it's less parenting and it's more just conversation and life, and you know, trying to have empathy for what children deal with now. You know, I think kids, Mike and I were talking about this yesterday, I think kids get a bad rap because everybody wants to call them lazy and technology addicted and all these things. And the reality is we didn't have those issues because they weren't out there.
Totally.
And so I'm very, you know, I don't want to be the dad that says, well, back in my day, we played outside all day, or back in my day, because I don't understand. So it's navigating the relationship of I was a teenage boy in a different time, and yeah. I need to have empathy for the struggles that they're going through because it's very difficult.
Yeah, totally. It's different, right? And it's something that we're all dealing with. And I think the fact that you're having the conversations, my husband and I always talk about it, right? We're always checking in, what are we doing? And we're talking to our kids about the issues. And like, you know, I think having the conversation is the biggest thing, instead of just allowing things to go down this path. And then you realize like, oh shit, you know?
Yeah. Right. Well, and I think, you know, the system's created to teach math and science, and all those things are important, but I don't think we do a good job educating our kids on, hey, if you have a problem, you need to talk about it. Right. You know, we need to discuss it. You need to think about things. It's just, you know, and I get why systems are created, but it's very robotic, and then you have technology pushing onto that.
Yeah.
And so you create an environment of kids that don't know how to express emotions, and they don't know how to talk to people and look them in the eye and express their feelings. Yeah. And Mike and I were talking yesterday about how little kids are so interesting to watch and talk to because they don't have a societal filter.
Totally.
They just tell you what they're thinking and what they like. And it's so genuine and beautiful to see that.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I'm super grateful. When we moved to Miami, we found this preschool, and they taught conscious discipline. And so you were required as a parent to take a course in conscious discipline. And they're all about empathy. And we found this amazing school actually in Miami that all of our boys go to. That's like very much like the social emotional is as important as the academics. And yeah, I think that, you know, for my husband and I, yeah, it's super interesting. It's not for everyone, but we feel like, you know, in the day and age that we live in, where everything is available to us through, you know, Google, and you have answers everywhere. It's no longer about, you know, what you memorize. It's really like, can you do you have empathy? Can you socialize? Can you network? Like the human interpersonal skills that are really so important. But it's interesting too, because, you're talking about ice baths, and it's like, I think that's like helps you with life in general, because if you're comfortable being uncomfortable, then you can have really uncomfortable conversations with your kids that my parents were not willing or able to have with me. Right.
Yeah.
So there's all of that.
Yeah.
Comfortable being uncomfortable. I like it.
My husband and I work really hard at being, getting comfortable at being uncomfortable, because that's really life, right?
Yeah, it's preparation.
Yeah,
it really is. And I bought the ice barrel, and I've gotten away from it, and it's changed the rest of my routine to the negative. When I'm dialed in with that thing, it seems to set the tone for the day. And
yeah.
So maybe talk about your routine.
Yeah.
If it's consistent, and just give us a little information on that.
I'd like to just jump into, and just discipline is a word I want to hear you talk about if possible.
Yeah.
But with routine, like discipline, and just Kevin and you mentioned it just now, Kevin, but we have good discipline, and then we may not have good discipline, and I think discipline is everything.
Yeah.
It's so important. Maybe not everything, but it is really high up there. And I would just be curious to understand how you feel about it as well.
So I think people would say I'm very disciplined. However, I don't know that I would actually like describe myself that way, because I do all the things I do because they make me feel a certain way, right? So it's not me forcing myself to do something when I don't want to do it. I mean, I really try to listen to my body. I feel like I'm very in touch with my intuition. And so, I'm also, premenopausal woman. So there's different things at times where it's not the best for me, for my body, right? So, I mean, I do so many things. Exercise is one that I value and very disciplined in, because like I'm not forcing myself when I like really hate it. I mean, almost never. It's because I remember how good I feel after. It's the same thing with the ice. I get in the ice because I feel so good afterwards, and that is the feeling that I remember, right? And the same thing with food. It's like I just am very in touch with how I feel. So I know if I eat shitty, or I'm on vacation and I eat poorly, I feel bad, and I'm grumpy and I'm irritable, and I'm like, I don't like myself. And so, I do all of these things, and I get very disciplined, but it's not coming from a place of like force. It's really coming more from like a place of self-love, and like I like to feel good, and I prioritize feeling good, because I am by far a better wife and mother and friend and human when I feel good.
How long have you had that? And I don't want to call it discipline. I guess
Yeah.
How long have you been able to? Because I like Mike said, and I'm the same way. I have streaks that I know that's where I need to get to.
Yeah.
But again, vacations, right? You go on vacation, you come back, you're like, I'm going to get refocused, and then it takes a while to get back on track for me.
Yeah.
And so do you feel like the longer you do it, the easier it is to get back on track? Or maybe just tell a little bit how long you've been in this routine and how long it takes you now to get back on track to it.
I mean, people might find this super annoying, but honestly, I've never fallen off like really long stretches from like working out or eating well for as long as I can remember, because I crave it. Like when I'm gone for vacation and I'm not working out, I'm not really meditating, like I let myself have, I feel like life is about fun. And I also think life is about contrast. So you need to fall off sometimes, because you need to remember why you're motivated in the first place, right? So like you fall off the wagon and you don't do any of the things that make you feel good. And then you feel shitty, as you expect to. And then you're more motivated, for me, to get back on. So like I'll come home from vacation and like I can't wait to get back to my routine. Like I'm excited to exercise and to do the sauna. And the ice is always interesting for me. I go through phases where I'm really good and I'm not, because I hate being cold. So I guess I fall off on that more. And it'll take like me having a really hard day where I'm in a mood where I'm really like having a hard time shifting it, and that is when I'll get back in ice, and that is when I will recommit, if you will, to it. So yeah, I think falling off the wagon is kind of part of the process,
That's a good point. I never thought about it as a good thing, but you're probably right, because it gives you perspective.
Now you've opened the door for Kevin to just fall off the wagon all the time.
Yep, I'm done. Well,
good one. Thanks a lot. Now I got to reel him back in.
One of my favorite quotes is, "You really don't change until you get tired of your own shit."
Yeah.
And it's so true. Like sometimes you have to, like for me, I have to push the boundaries to be like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
I got to get back into it. I'm kind of there right now.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of travel, and so like I told Mike last night, I'm like, I'm right there. I'm gonna flip it. But
and is that for you in the past, is that what gets you back on board? Just the feeling of
yes, just the feeling of being disappointed with myself.
Yeah.
Yep, that's where it comes into play, is where I'm like, okay, that's enough. I'm done. I got to get back on track. But when I get back on track, I usually get back on track with everything. So I go
all or nothing.
Right. Yeah. I'm kind of all or nothing. Yeah. Both ways.
Yeah.
Like off the wagon or on the wagon.
Interesting. At least you know yourself. I think that's half the battle, right? It's just knowing where you are and who you are and what's going to remotivate you to get back on.
Melanie, we're looking for consistency. We're looking for the secret, consistent, and it's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress, right? I don't know that anybody has the secret sauce, right? I mean, for me, I think everyone is motivated by feelings. It's not what we should do. Like, it's never enough to be like, I have a family of dieters, and I've always been thin, so it's something I don't fully understand. But it's like the wanting to wear the size whatever is never a big enough motivator. Like, if you feel like shit, pay attention to how you feel, because that's a motivator.
Yeah. Yes. So I love that, because we've had, I think on the website we have a saying that's fitness is a feeling. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to learn that.
Yeah.
But I can really relate to you talking about feeling good.
Yeah.
Because that is just such a big deal to just, and I'd love to transition into nutrition on that topic too, because I'm really curious about that, or Kevin and I are. But yeah, feeling good is everything. And that's kind of, I think, what maybe Kevin and I struggle with, because we do go on long stretches of feeling good. Then we, go on spring break or something, and it takes a while to turn it back up again. But I think we are shooting to be more disciplined and consistent with our nutrition, our exercise, our health. I mean, we're pretty good with exercise, but I'm just curious, it sounds like you're better than us as far as
dialed in. Sure.
Although it's not a negative, but the other day you showed us your refrigerator.
Yeah.
And there was some wine in there.
There was wine in there.
So that's promising for us, because we like to have some cocktails every once in a while. But I guess moderation. What's the story there?
I'm not all or nothing. I really am not. I really fully believe in balance. And I think that, I think this is the way I look at it. Like, I want to feel my best. And sometimes feeling my best in that moment is having a dirty martini. Like, honestly, it just, I don't shame myself for my decisions. I really don't. I feel like at the end of my life, I could look back and be like, wow, I was perfect and everything. And like, part of me is like, how boring, right? It's like, we need, and I sometimes, I go on vacation and I may overdrink, and then I need that too, to remind myself why I don't do that. I think that it's always about balance.
Yeah. I like it. I occasionally will overdrink as well. It's good though, right? It does give you, we've talked about how sometimes alcohol gives you, it gives yourself permission to make other decisions, like eat badly or stay up late. And so it's the balance of realizing, like, am I doing this to unwind? Am I doing this to relax? Or am I doing this because I want to cook a pizza? Or I wanted, you know what I mean? Like, it's, for us, it's trying to figure out that why.
It's the intention. I think 100% it's the intention, which I realize, like, for myself, if I am having a drink because I am coming from a place of lack, which is like lack of energy, lack of fun, I'm bored, I'm stressed, like, I will feel the effects the next day, because I'm already in a place of lack and I'm adding alcohol to that, and I will feel it. Where if I'm having a drink as a celebration, or like as something that I feel filled up, and I'm sharing an experience with someone, like, very often I'll feel nothing the next day. I won't have any kind of hangover or anything. And I feel like it's the intention behind it really does matter.
Wow. I've never thought about that.
Me
That's
neither.
so true though.
Right? I was gonna say, pay attention. It's been something I call them emotional hangovers because you can be, you can just be stressed and kind of feel hungover, or like have really emotional days and feel hungover. And you add alcohol to that and you are really going to feel hungover.
So drink when you're celebrating, not when you're, when you're on the uptick is when you can enjoy some alcohol, not on the downslide.
For me, for sure. For me,
yeah,
like
it's
when
interesting.
I feel emotionally filled up and I am like at a high vibe, then I feel like I can have alcohol and it's not going to crush me. When I'm already like, at a deficiency, I'm going to feel it.
So going back into nutrition, and I did see that do you take AG1? Is that correct?
I do.
Do you like it?
I do.
You'd like the taste of it?
Have you had it?
Yeah.
So
I can't. It's so bad. Like,
it's so funny. I will give it to my parents. I'm like, it's pretty good, right? And they're like, eh.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you mix it with anything other than water?
No, but I do put ice in it because I think it's way better cold. Do you drink it cold?
Yeah, I try to. Does it stick to the ice?
I put it in a mason jar and shake it.
Okay.
That tends to work pretty well for me. I actually like it, but I love green salads and like that's like honestly kind of my jam. So maybe I'm weird.
Have you tried other ones, or is that just the one that you went with?
As far as just pure greens powder, I have that one. And then I use Purium products as well. Purium makes really clean products. And so I have one of their green powders that has small amount of protein. It's like 6 grams of protein per serving. I like that one too, but I don't know if you don't like AG1, you might not like the taste of that either.
I was hoping you had like a secret recipe of like lemon juice and maybe some.
I don't. I feel like, for me, it's like I feel like I'm very much a realist, and I live, I'm a mom of 3 boys. It's busy, right? So as much as I love, and I do cook and I make my own salads and whatever, but I love the idea of making my own greens powder, but it's just not realistic in this part of my life.
Yeah, that would be nice if that. I'm guessing that it's pretty time consuming to get all that stuff in together.
I make smoothies, but
right. So other nutrition, do you follow any sort of diet, or is it just kind of listen to your body and get enough nutrients?
I'm pretty strict about certain things. So I'm strict on gluten. We eat gluten-free. I'm strict about food colors. My kids do not eat food dyes. High fructose corn syrup. We primarily organic. I mean, as organic as possible. And then, there's definitely fluctuations in that, right? There's still junk food that's organic. And I think that I approach it the same way with balance. I feel like raising 3 boys, what I am conscious of is that I don't want to be so strict that then when they leave the house, they're going to be, going to fast food and, going bonkers.
Yeah.
So I feel like, we allow them generally to have like 1 treat a day, and they eat chips on the weekends. And but yeah, I cook primarily at home, and we eat paleo-ish. We do eat rice, so I'm not super strict on like the type. I've tried different diets for sure. I was vegetarian for a period of time. I was vegan for a very small period of time. I've done keto. I've done kind of all of them, and I feel like I just kind of landed at a nice place of eating whole nutrient-dense foods.
You're not eating that rice that you said bad things to, are you?
My youngest son was trying to eat the love rice for like,
oh, really?
That's been there for like 9 months, and he was begging me to eat it, but no, we don't eat it.
That's an amazing experiment, by the way.
Wow, isn't it? So
yeah.
Cool.
That is, it's just amazing. It makes a lot of sense, and it, but it was still shocking. I like how you said that your mom didn't believe that it was actually a real thing.
I know. I'm like, seriously, my mom doesn't believe me. No one believes me. But I mean, we really did it to show our boys who, are terrible to each other and call each other's names and whatever. It was like a physical representation of this is what you're doing to each other when you are so hateful and mean, right? And it was so powerful, and it blew us away too. It was beyond my expectations. That love jar still has no mold, and it's like a year old at this point.
That's unbelievable.
I know.
Do your boys like to get in physical altercations as well?
Oh my gosh, boys, yeah, they take it for themselves. I mean, you guys know this, I'm sure.
So
right?
funny.
Does that stop ever?
No.
Okay.
Maybe Mike can speak to this, as he's got one in college.
I think every family's different, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have a good answer there.
No.
Do they still get after it when they when they get together
Yeah.
physically, or not so much?
They're good. I told them at a young age that my dying wish is that they're best buddies, and they've been pretty good to each other. I don't think that my saying that to them mattered, but yeah, they're pretty good. But yeah, I mean, I think it just gets easier, to Kevin's point, with the raising of the kids, and and I'm at the very tail end of it. I have a boy in college and a junior in high school. Okay. So we are definitely in this transition of empty nesters soon and all that. So that's wild. It's crazy. It goes quick, not to sound old, but it goes quick.
No, I totally get it. I'm already witnessing that. And it's interesting. We were having a conversation with my husband years ago, and I said, like, the goal is to raise kids that move out, right? So you have to make sure that you prioritize your relationship with your spouse, so that you're not, living with a stranger.
So true. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you go ahead.
Sorry, Kevin. I do want to say too that totally lost my train of thought. But it'll come back to me. So you go, Kevin.
I don't know where I was going either.
That's great. I ruined it for everybody.
That's so good.
Yeah, I don't know.
So yoga, right? That's something that you're really into. And so
I've done yoga for probably 20 years now.
So my wife, for her birthday this year, I asked her what she wanted, and she said that she wanted me to do hot yoga. Okay. And so, of course, I'm like, well, what else do you want? But I talked Mike and his wife, not his wife, but Mike, into doing it with us. So we went into the yoga studio. It was 100 degrees. I forgot a towel. It was a hot mess. Yeah, it was a shit show. But what I really appreciated about it was, I learned a lot about yoga from a standpoint of nobody gives a shit. Nobody's there to look at how bad your form is other than the instructor.
Right.
And it's challenging, and it's flexibility is really important, and I am not flexible. So I learned a lot about it. So have you done yoga for a number of years? How did you get into it?
Yeah, I started actually when I think I first moved to Chicago right after college, and I started doing hot yoga. And I think that I love the fact that it's breath to movement, right? And like really you're forced to breathe, especially when you're in those hot classes and you're in these positions that you don't even know how you got into, and you really have to breathe. And so I love things that bring me to the present moment. And to the point about no one gives a shit, I find that like the older I get, I'm like, isn't that true of most things? Like everyone's worried about their own shit, and no one knows about anybody else.
I know it's tough because for so long you think that.
Yeah.
You think that everything that you do is being judged and monitored by other people.
Right.
And to your point is they're so busy figuring out their own life and trying to navigate what's going on in front of them that they don't care.
100%. Yeah.
But it's like, I wish you could somehow teach younger people that lesson earlier. And I don't know how, because that's really important for me to teach my boys that now, because it's going to save them a lot of anxiety.
100%. And I mean, anxiety, my gosh, kids have so much anxiety these days. It's really awful, scary. But yeah, I feel like, I don't exactly know how to teach that either, but I think, as parents, we model that for one. And I think, just also raising boys who are self-confident and who feel, they know themselves. And I think that sets them up on the right track, at least.
Yeah. And I think, too, there's not enough, and it's not a school system problem or even a societal problem, but there's not enough teaching kids that it's okay to be unique. It's okay to like what you like. And it's just, I think that kids always want to be like other kids, and that's never going to change. But to teach self-responsibility at an early age.
Yeah.
If you're not good at this sport, well, guess what? You need to put more time into it. It's nobody else's fault. It's not coaches. It's not parents.
Right.
But then also to identify first what do you want.
Yeah.
I don't think we teach kids enough to think about like what is the outcome that you actually want. Right. Because then as parents, I think we can create a strategy to get you there.
Right.
I don't know what the answer is.
Did you guys always do family meals together, dinners with your kids?
We when they were younger, yes. Once we got involved in sports and things like that, and I did some coaching, not so much.
Yeah.
I would agree with that, but we always try to come back to meals together. My wife cooks, and regardless of how chaotic it gets, and it will get chaotic for you, I assume, because you have 3 boys, if it's not already.
It's already. It'll get chaotic.
But just trying to find that time, even if it's a few days a week or whatever, just where everyone's together.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's such an important time. Like we will, my husband and I will try to be very intentional in our conversation with our boys too. And so we often we'll go around the table and do like table talk. And sometimes it'll be, you share your grateful, your best, and your most challenging part of your day. And we added the challenging part because, so that my husband was like, if you don't have anything challenging, you're not doing anything to stretch or grow, right? Like you're not trying hard enough. And my 6-year-old sometimes like literally he'll be like, I didn't do anything challenging today. So I didn't try hard enough.
That's awesome.
But we want to teach them that it's okay to fail because it's all part of the process of, learning and growing, trying and practicing. And
Are your boys pretty open with conversation?
I think so. I'm so open that like my measure for that is probably off. But my husband would say our boys are very open because he was not raised like this at all. Like they didn't talk about anything really growing up. He just shove everything out, under the rug and talk behind everyone's back. And So yes, I think I am very intentional about our conversations with our boys, and I want them to know that they can come to me and get a real answer for anything that they have to ask or want to know about. And so yeah, we have conversations about all sorts of things that I didn't think we would be getting into yet. But
So my wife took that same approach. And when our boys were little, they would ask things, and I would be just like, oh, I'm not saying that. And she would just go out and just be completely honest.
Yeah, me too.
And at first, I'm like, whoa, like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I can't even be a part of this conversation. But then I realized, like, why not? Why not? Like, the sooner you teach people to be honest about everything, like, that's a hard thing for people to be later in life. Like, you have to relearn it at some point.
Totally.
And so I 100% agree with that. Where at first I'm like, I don't want to hear that answer.
Yeah, it's hard. And my husband just wrote a book, and it's his story, and he has so much. I mean, it airs kind of like all of our dirty laundry.
Wow.
And so we've had conversations of, our boys are going to read this someday, and we both come from the approach of, we are human beings. We never claim to be perfect. We're not perfect. We've done a lot of things that, we're not proud of, but that we also can't be ashamed of because they're part of our journey. And I think talking about these things really, I think, is so empowering. And I think there's so much power in sharing human stories, right? It allows other people to do the same thing.
I 100% agree.
It's awesome. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your business and some of the things that you're doing right now?
Yeah, I would love to.
As part of your story going forward, yes.
Yeah, so interesting. I started my career in sales, and I quickly got into pharmaceutical sales, medical device sales. And then I really went into like this health journey where I was almost like anti all of that, right? Anti-pharmaceuticals and anti-everything. And so that's when I went through nutrition. It's when I had my kids, and it's really when my health journey started. And, interestingly, I was on hormonal birth control for like 10 some years, right? And I remember during those years, I had all sorts of craziness. I had mood swings and massive mood swings. My husband, I'm not sure how he stuck around, but anyway, and frequent infections, and I got diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome and all of these things. And then I went back to school for nutrition, and I learned about what's called drug-induced nutrient depletion. And at the time, I was like pissed off because I was like, why had no one told me that I was depleting my body of all of these nutrients when I was on birth control for all of those years? And I asked the questions. I asked my OBGYN, and no one told me, right? And so I got kind of angry about it. And so fast forward, and I'm launching a company, a supplement company called Alii, and it is specifically to address what's called drug-induced nutrient depletion. And so the first one that we are launching is a supplement that addresses the nutrient nutrients depleted by hormonal birth control because of my own journey. And so hopefully we will launch other lines as well, because there's other pharmaceuticals that also deplete other nutrients. And so it's really not, I'm not intending to promote pharmaceuticals in any way. It's really more about meeting people where they are on their health journey, right? And recognizing that, yes, I think that there's always other ways than pharmaceuticals, but there's still a place for pharmaceuticals. And if I were 19 years old again, I would still go on birth control, knowing what I know now. I would just support my body better while I was doing it, right? And so, yeah, that's what I'm taking on, which has been scary and exciting and quite a whirlwind learning experience for sure.
Do you feel like a lot of problems are caused by being deficient in other areas?
Yes, I do. I think that, our soils sadly are depleted in our country. And so even though I eat so well and I'll get my blood work, I'm sometimes still deficient in things. And so I think that a lot of us are walking around severely or at least moderately deficient. And it's interesting when you actually look up nutritional deficiencies for, let's say, B vitamins, they are necessary for mood. And so they'll support a healthy mood, right? And so you're on this pharmaceutical that's depleting you of the things that you need. And so are you actually experiencing a side effect from the pharmaceutical, or are you experiencing a side effect from a nutritional deficiency? And, it could be either. And so it's like, well, that's the low hanging fruit. We can take care of that relatively simply,
Just to get back to base, you mean? Is that, yeah.
100%. Yeah. At least have a strong foundation so that your body is resilient if you give it what it needs. The human body is so amazing, and, it'll heal, but it does need basic things, and it needs nutrients. And if you're depleting those, you're really kind of in this really ugly cycle of never really able to get past that. And so it's just, let's take care of that part of the issue right away.
Are there good tests out there other than just general blood work that people can get to see if they're deficient in certain areas?
Yeah, actually, there's hair tests. You can actually take just hair, and you can test your micronutrients, which is super interesting and actually pretty affordable. I think you can get a hair test for like $50. It's not major. You can also do at-home blood tests that will test for nutritional deficiencies. I mean, the best is if you work with like a naturopath or a functional medicine doctor to give you a full panel, but those do get more expensive. So I understand that maybe not accessible for everyone, but a hair test is a great place to start for people. And those are quite affordable.
And then if
you don't have hair?
Go ahead.
Well, I imagine.
Yeah, eyebrows.
It's all good. Is there a place we can go to find out more about your company?
Yeah, so I guess two things. So you can check out my supplement at Alii, ALII supplement.com. And also I have a website for my nutrition coaching business as well, which is holistic health with Mel.coach, excuse me. Holistic health, you can go there as well. And I'm also on Instagram, which is obviously where you guys found me. So love all things health and wellness. So happy to answer any questions, or if people want to reach out.
Yeah. Well, I have one more question for you here, and then we can wrap this up.
Yeah.
Is this the question, Kevin?
This is the question.
Oh my gosh.
On your potential scale,
yes,
1 to 10, where do you feel that you fall right now?
That's a great question. I'm going to give you the answer that comes first to mind without overthinking it. I think for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm at an 8. And I also don't know that I think at times in my life, I were probably at a 4 or 5, but I'm not sure I had the awareness to recognize all of the potential that I wasn't tapping into.
That's an awesome answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thank you.
We so appreciate it. I hope we can stay connected.
I agree. I hope so too. I love what you guys are doing, and keep going with your challenges. I think it's really great for people, and you see how you change one thing and it has a domino effect, and you never really know who you're impacting. So I think that keep up the good work.
You as well.
Appreciate it.
Great to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys too. Thanks so much.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.